3 years ago, the Daily Hive said that the Bank of Canada raising interest rates could push 35% of Canadians into bankruptcy. And after those increases took the bank's overnight lending rate from 0.25% in 2022 to as high as 5% where they stayed for a year, Canadians proved resilient and we weathered the storm. After all, in February 2022, 1,866 Canadians filed for bankruptcy. And in Stats Canada's most recent insolvency report, just last month, only 2,221 new bankruptcies were filed. Now that is an increase of almost 20%, but a far cry from 35% of all Canadians, which would be 14,035,000 people if you're counting along. But now, Canada is facing a new threat. A trade war launched by the American government in an effort to crush the Canadian economy, stop drugs and human trafficking, bring back manufacturing to the US, or who knows, maybe it's even designed to annex this country and make it the 51st state. After all, if POTUS follows through with his threats, it will mean higher prices for already strapped consumers, a weaker economy, and the potential collapse of the Canadian housing market. But is this time different? Is this now a legitimate threat to our economy and country, or is this whole thing overblown by the media? Well, I'm going to share with you a few ideas in today's video about the positives and negatives of the whole situation, some pitfalls that might be coming around the corner, and how you might be able to take advantage of this situation to make money. So subscribe to the channel, click the like button for Canada, and let's get into the video. Now, as I said, of course, this whole tariff thing is going to be bad for trade and the economy. It may increase inflation, and that could cause interest rates to rise when they should be falling. And yes, this is all legit. These are not good things. But like that Daily Hive article from 3 years ago, is it really going to be that bad? Personally, I don't think so. And here's why. First, let's talk about patriotism. Canada has not had a whole lot of patriotism lately. But really, who could blame us? We've had a government that should have likely called an election a year or more ago, and something like 5% of Canada's population has only arrived since 2020, meaning they don't even know how to skate yet. But this trade war has spiked a renewed patriotism in Canada. Canadians are becoming more aware of where their products are being made. And now finally, the government at all levels is starting to see the value in things like pipelines and mining in an effort to get our resources from coast to coast and into new markets. And now the first ministers have finally realized that there is another massive step that they can take to improve the economy. And that is to remove all interprovincial trade barriers. Because it's actually hard to blame the states for imposing trade tariffs when it's easier to get California wine in BC than it is to buy small batch Alberta brew. If these barriers are then removed between provinces, trade will increase from east to west rather than relying on it going north to south, and professionals will be able to work in other provinces as their certifications get streamlined. All of this will increase consumer and business opportunities across the country, but then of course there's always hesitancy because of, well, Quebec. And this all in theory should help boost jobs, productivity, and eventually lower prices. But there is one thing that will actually not reduce in price anytime soon, and that is the cost of building materials. As if new housing starts weren't low enough already, with sky-high costs of building and a slow market, new builds will continue to slow as building materials become more scarce and even more expensive. Although right now the market is quite soft and prices are trending downwards, as costs increase in these slow times, fewer and fewer home starts will begin, meaning that in 3, 4, or 5 years from now, when the market inevitably turns around again, no new housing completions will be finished because, well, they didn't start in the first place. Now. And we are then going to likely be headed right back into that feast or famine cycle that we all say we hate, but we can't seem to avoid. And that leads us to the current situation of opportunity. The great Warren Buffett once said, "Be fearful when others are greedy, and be greedy when others are fearful." What this means is that when the market is, quote, good, it's good for sellers, like back in 2021 and 2022, when buyers were overpaying for real estate and were way too happy to do so. But now that both prices and interest rates are lower, nobody wants to buy because the market is, quote, bad. And this is in reality the exact opposite of what smart investors like Buffett preach. It's times like these, amongst crazy negativity and uncertainty in the marketplace, that the next generation of millionaires will be created. And in my line of business, my clients grow their wealth from owning real estate over long periods of time. So even though it doesn't look or feel like it, it's times like this one when everyone in the economy is running scared and it feels like things are only getting worse and there will never be a recovery, that smart investors buy into the market. However, there is a high likelihood that you are not a savvy investor watching this Canadian real estate channel and you just want to buy a home for you and your family. But your dad and your uncle and all of your coworkers are telling you how bad of a time it is to make a purchase. Well, personally, if I had a need to move right now, like I was getting married, having a kid, or moving for a new job, doom and gloom news stories like the big orange angry man coming to steal your job, economy, and country would not stop me from doing what's best for me and my family. Because although things seem really bad right now, in the housing market, affordability is actually way better right now than it was just a year or two ago. And the other reason I wouldn't let the media get in my head and paralyze me from making a move in uncertain times is that I know one thing. This too will change. The only constant in this world is change. There will always be a news story making you question your recent home purchase, and it usually comes out exactly one day after you just removed your conditions. But your eye must remain on the prize. And that prize is not only having a safe place for you and your family to live where you cannot be evicted from a landlord when the market turns in his favor, but as an investment, the prize is 20 years down the road. In that time, there's going to be another 5 presidents and prime ministers elected. Some you will like, some you will like, and then eventually dislike. And they will all do stupid things that piss you off. And during that time, the market will see both ups and downs. But when you retire, your house will be paid off. And at that time, you can then choose to either live out the rest of your days in a fully paid off home or sell it and live off of the equity. And if this all makes sense to you and you're determined to not be one of those people living in the fear of the news cycle, make sure to watch this video about why you are stupid if you do not buy real estate this year.